You guys got a nice little setup.
Thanks, man. We just getting started on the journey, bud. We're excited about it. It's a we got a sign coming here soon, but unfortunately, it's not ready for this episode, which is
Yeah,
annoying.
that'll look good, dude. Like my backgrounds are tough. Like
Yeah,
all the backgrounds, in my videos are just so basic, and I'm like,
yeah, but it's not uncommon. You know what I mean? Like,
whatever.
dude, so Tony painted this wall. That's Tony Braydon.
Hey,
Tony
Braydon,
Braydon.
what's up?
Tony painted this wall. I got a little fruit tray and put some pickleballs in it, and then we got like some side lights from what's that website? Temu or something like that. That just like has ridiculously cheap stuff.
Oh yeah, I've never bought anything off that before.
I hadn't either, and it was like I had all these
You
discounts.
did
It was
it.
like $20 for
Oh, that's
both the
hilarious.
lights. I was like, screw it. I need
And
some
it
stuff.
works.
It
Yeah.
may
What
work
is
for
Timo?
now.
Is it? It's just like a.
I think it's black market Amazon, but I'm not 100%
What it is?
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it everywhere, and I'm like, do I trust it?
No, you don't, and you
No.
should.
They
Definitely not.
they took your money and they like
They
your
sent
card
me
hasn't been
product,
hacked
though.
or anything.
Yeah, they sent me product. We're good to go.
You can't return it. There's no way there's a
No.
return policy.
No, there's no returning any of that stuff.
No.
Nice, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on, dude. Honestly, like I told you from the beginning, we're just going to kind of chit chat a little bit. We want to be more the voice of like the recreational player, right? And I feel like you are a perfect, I don't know, like grassroots person for that, right? Because like I just played with
Oh,
somebody.
dude, was that a subtle dig at my pickleball skills right there?
No, that's an unbelievable
I'm just kidding.
promotion on your hard work and paddle testing. I just played with somebody yesterday. It was his third time ever playing. You know, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll play pickleball with you." I was a 4.0 tennis player. Like, we'll be just good. And then he played for a little while, and we had a good time. And he's like, "Oh, I got to get a new racket." I'm like, "Well, first of all, it's a paddle." And he's like, "Well, what type of paddle should I get?" I'm like, "Well, I got a great interview tomorrow with a guy named Braydon. Why don't you wait a few minutes and I'll let you know in a couple days what he says." But
you
I
go.
took
There you
your
go.
I took your quiz on pickleball effect, and
Oh, what'd you think?
I liked it. It was good questions. I felt like it was not long, which was awesome. I wasn't afraid, but in my head, I'm like, I hope this isn't like 15 questions. You know what I mean? I felt like the
Yeah.
questions were appropriate. I feel like I don't know enough about my skill sets to know exactly what I was doing, but I think I did a good enough job of taking the quiz for sure. And it hit me back with like a more expensive one and then a more reasonable one, which I think probably is part of your algorithm. But yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, and it was quick too. It was only like what, 6 questions?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number of questions, but yeah, I tried to keep it simple. That's good feedback. It's fun to hear you talk about it. Yeah, like a lot of these, other quizzes I've seen, it's like, do you want a 16 millimeter or 14 millimeter? Like it gets technical. It's like, no, like ask questions about how, like, do you want a faster or slower paddle? Do you want, for speed or this or that? Like just talking in terms of how it plays rather than like the technical specs. And then
100%.
the algorithm will take into account your answers and then assign, the technical specs to the answers.
Yeah. So let's get there because I want to talk about that in a little bit. But like first and foremost, let's get started. And why don't you just share with us, because we're interested in we'll talk about a little bit of our journey too. But like, what was your first journey in pickleball? Where did you get started? How did you get started into the sport? We all catch the bug. How'd you catch it?
Yeah. So, funny enough, like I grew up in Utah. I'm in Boise, Idaho now, but in Utah, pickleball has been a thing for a long time. And so in high school, I remember playing in a tournament. We were traveling and there were some courts there and I was like, what is this? And so that was like the first time I was introduced to pickleball. I didn't start playing there, but that was like 15 years ago, like 15 years ago when I was like first like saw courts. And then I started playing kind of late 2019, right before, what is that when pandemic hit? Was that 2019,
It was
2020?
2020. Yeah, it was. It was March 2020 when everything shut
Yeah.
down.
So I started playing like late 2019 and then pandemic hit. And then I started playing more consistently 2020, which is a lot of people's story. I moved, that was right when I moved to Idaho where I'm in that am now. And there were some courts nearby. Just started meeting up with some people, a lot of people older than me that were just whooping me. You hear that all the time. And then, dude, you catch the bug, man. Like my brand's called Pickleball Effect. And like, that was like the name came from that, like that bug, right? Like once you start, you can't stop. It's the Pickleball Effect. And so that's kind of what I named my brand off of. But yeah, started 2019, and like I don't think I've probably missed like since I started regularly playing in 2020. There's probably been 2 or 3 weeks where like I haven't played pickleball, which is pretty bizarre.
Isn't that crazy, man? Everybody catches up like that's funny you said the pickleball effect because I was wondering how you got that name, and yeah, that is exactly what that is, the pickleball effect. Tony's felt the same thing. We all felt it.
When did we get into
Yeah,
it? 2021.
Yeah, I don't know. You tell me though, because you've told me this before. So Tony and I went to high school together as well. I strangely don't remember the pickleball at our high school, but all my friends tell me we played Do you remember playing pickleball in high school,
no,
Tony?
I don't remember.
Yeah, so we had a teacher, Bruce Bentley, and he was big into badminton, and I guess we played a bunch of pickleball in high school as well, which I do not remember. But yeah, we got into it. Like I was telling you before, my brother was a big pickleball guy. And I like to tell a story because everybody kind of feels the same way. He asked me to drill with him in pickleball, and I just had no idea what any of those words meant. And then, yeah, the pickleball effect set in for me too. You know what I mean? And we all get the bug. And then Tony and I started playing, and we were literally playing singles tennis with like Love 30 and like Love 40.
Yeah.
And then we realized how to actually play pickleball. And then, you know, we started building out our group from there. And you know, moving on up. And then, you know, you get into the spot, which is why, you know, we feel like pickleball effect and your website and what you're doing is going to be so valuable because I was lucky to have my brother, and my brother kind of like helped me figure out, hey, first I bought a Paddle Tech. He thought the Paddle Tech was the right brand to buy. And then he bought the Yola. So I bought the Yola, and then my paddle was breaking. And so, I just waited for the new Yolas to come out. While meanwhile, my paddle was like this for a couple weeks. And so I bought the Yolas. And so, yeah, it's just interesting. Nobody really knows. There's so many paddles. Nobody really knows what to buy. People go to the Dick's Sporting Goods rack. They go to, you know, they just look something up online or whatever. And I feel like your resource is super valuable.
yeah, it's pretty wild. Like when you look at the numbers of the paddle, or just like the sheer amount of paddle companies over the last 2 years, it's just like it's just insane. Like over 600 paddles were approved last year, and like the year before that, it was around like 400. They were like it's just been like doubling the amount of like brands that are approving paddles. And yeah, dude, it's like the barrier to entry to create a pickleball brand is relatively low. So we're seeing just floods and floods of brands, and obviously there's you have your main players. But there's a lot of really good paddles kind of outside of that, kind of mainstream stuff. And it's fun discovering those and helping just people navigate it all.
This is something I've been curious about because there can't be, maybe there is, you probably know this answer. How many actual pickleball paddle manufacturing warehouses and how many of these people are getting the exact same thing with just like a different logo on it?
Yeah, so there's very few brands that are actually legitimately doing like R&D and are like make paddles that are like
Different than
significantly
somebody
different.
else's.
There's honestly only like 5-10 brands that are like really pushing the label there. And then there's just it's a lot of kind of, I don't know, what do you call it? Just like, I think it's called OEM. Like you pretty much just go pick a paddle off the shelf, and a lot of these are manufactured in China. And you put your branding, you change things here and there, and like there are going to be differences and nuances between all these brands. Like you can pick it between like the type of materials you're using, the quality, like the different cell sizes, how many face sheets, shape size. Like there's little nuances, but for the most part they're all very similar. But like if you know what you're doing, you can still build a pretty good brand or a pretty good paddle through the shelf stuff. But yeah, a lot of them, there's a lot of really similar paddles coming out of, probably 5-10 different manufacturers.
So when it comes to price points, skill levels, I know like if I'm a banger, I hit the ball hard, but I need more control, or if Tony's got better control and he's got a good overhand or something like that. I know you can kind of decipher what type of paddle you want. But let's say you're just a beginner. Let's say you're, anywhere from like a 3.0 to like a 4.2 or something like that, right? Where you're still developing your game, you're playing some competitive matches within the groups that you're playing with, right? Because if you're a 3.0 and you're playing with other 3.0s, That's my favorite part about pickleball is you can feel like you're a professional player because you're having a super competitive match. You're sweating.
Yeah.
Everyone's having a great time. The barrier to entry is so little as long as you're finding equal competition.
Hmm.
But I feel like that's where once you get above that, once you get 4.5 and above, I mean, I think those people know exactly what type of paddle they want. I think they know kind of what suits their game. But almost like in basketball or hockey or something like that, where you're picking out your hockey skates or your basketball shoes. Maybe you don't want to spend a lot of money. You know, I mean, some of these paddles are going for over $250, $200. Maybe you just want to buy like an $80, $100 paddle per skill level and price point. Like where are you directing people? If you're at the courts and you see somebody and they're asking you some questions like this or whatever in general, like what kind of direction do you give people in that space?
Yeah. Yeah. So I will typically recommend like a control or all court style paddle from the beginning to, because like the drops, the dinking, the resets, like that's the hardest part to learn, and it doesn't come the quickest. Like the putaways, the the power and stuff comes a little more naturally. And so yeah, I'll say no, go get a paddle that's going to help you where you're weaker, and usually that's controlling the ball. And so some type of control oriented paddle is typically better when you're first getting going. And then and like another reason for that too, right? Like in that 3.0, 3.5 level, if I have an opportunity to attack and I can get any like decent amount of, if I can put it in a good spot, have a little bit of pace on it, like the ball just doesn't come back as often. But when
Correct.
you're in that 4.5, 5.0 space where like the ball comes back and power means more,
Yeah, your hands battling at
it
that
can,
speed. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
once you start getting in that battle, that's why everyone hates those Yola or the Yolas and the gearboxes. Is like those hand battles just aren't existing anymore.
yeah. The counters are so much stronger with those. Yeah, it makes a big difference. And yeah, you put that in someone's hands who knows how to use it. They can do some damage with it. But yeah, that control all court space I think is going to favor most people just getting going. I think they're going to have more benefits. It's going to help reduce errors. Like you want something forgiving, you want something that's player friendly. You don't want something that's super demanding, right? As you're kind of developing your skill set, and then as you develop your skill set, you can kind of improve. You find paddles that are giving you a little more offensively, but at the beginning, it's just it doesn't it benefits you a lot more to get something more forgiving, more control oriented than something more power focused.
Do you feel like over the last 4 years, the paddle like technology has changed enough to warrant the change in price?
No, well, so yes, we're seeing like price pressure moving upwards, but we've also seen more brands come in that are making really good stuff in that $100 to $180 range, and
Right.
so it's 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 kind of give and take. Like these new processes. So like when paddles were 3 years ago, they're all being made what's called like a cold press process. You
Hmm.
essentially take like a sheet of polymer and you glue two carbon fiber sheets to the polymer, put an edge guard around it, and call it good. It's just like it was a really basic, simple process, and those are still being sold today. They're still kind of known as being good control paddles. But yeah, it's definitely cheaper to make those. So now, like you'll see paddles being made with a process called thermoforming, which uses more heat, uses more material to like kind of seal everything together, makes the structure a little more stronger, more integrity to it, like offers more power, and that does cost more to build paddles that way. And then again, now with this kind of Gen 3 style paddle, we're starting to see like foam integrated into cores, which has just kind of started happening this year. Like it does cost a little bit more to make those paddles versus old, but we're talking, it costed, $15. Now it costs 20, and now it costs $25 to
Yeah.
manufacture a paddle, depending on, the volume you order. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily warrant what they're being charged, but when you're a big company, like you got to make money, and it's not uncommon to see those types of margins in all industries. It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
I kind of compare the paddle industry to the basketball shoe industry, right? Because a lot of it's brand name, and you're paying for the brand name. Some of it's performance stuff like that. But you're really just you have a paddle, you have a shoe, you have a paddle, you have a shoe, right? And so that's kind of what I was talking about
Yep.
earlier. Is when you're first getting started, no one's expecting you to buy, unless you're like the cool guy on the court or something like that, right? Nobody's expecting you to buy like a $250 pair of
Oh
Jordans
no.
to do
Yeah.
some
Nah.
rec play. So like, what brands? I don't want. I mean, if you don't want to spit off brands, you don't have to. But
Sure.
like, where are you direct? I really am curious because I know people jump to Dick's
Yeah.
Sporting Goods. People jump all over the place. Like, where should people look to buy a paddle?
So in that like $100 to $150 range, it's a little more murky. Like there's really good paddles in the $100 to $150 range, but there's also really crappy ones. And so you have to kind of know what you're looking for in that space.
Stay away from the
And
wood, or are we getting after the wood paddles?
but like for example, like Head is a really big brand. You'll see Head paddles in a lot of Dick's sporting goods stores, and their $100 to $150 paddles just aren't very good. But then there's lesser known brands out, so like Vatic Pro comes to mind. They have some really good thermoform and control type paddles in the $100 to like $140 range that I recommend pretty often. In that price point, that's like light years ahead of the Head paddles at $100, because when you like these bigger brands like Yola or Head or whatever, their best paddles are $200 to $250. In order to keep their best paddles good, they can't make good $100 ones, or everyone's
Right.
going to buy the $100 ones, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to kind of when that $100 to $150 range, I think it's better to go for the kind of those medium size companies that are doing really good. So Vatic Pro, there's another company called like 11624. It's pretty popular right now.
Mhm.
Like 60 has some really good paddles. Volair is another one that has some really good around that kind of $100 to $180 range that are like really good paddles. The that don't have to worry so much about keeping the paddles different in that price range. And so yeah, I do think it's worth it to kind of branch outside of the bigger brands when you're looking in that $100 $150 range. But don't buy them at Dick's.
What was your paddle journey like? Like when you first started, do you remember what you were playing with? And obviously, like you're a unique situation where you have, companies sending you paddles to test, right? So you have a opportunity. But before that, right? Before you started doing what you're doing now, before you kind of got your name out there, what were you using? What did you like? What drove you even to this kind of career path? Like, were you seeing a difference in what you were using? And hey, I want to try to figure this out, or
Yeah. So
what was that journey?
Yeah,
like?
when I first started, I was playing with this. I don't even remember what the name of the brand was. It was just this, Amazon type paddle. And then I started like this league with my coworkers at the time. So this must have been 4 years ago. And I was like, I bet if I put a little website up, I could get sponsors. And so I put a little website up for this league, and I reached out to Engage and Paddle Tech, and they all sent me some free paddles to give to the winners, and I just took one.
That's awesome.
And it was a Paddle Tech. It was a Bantam like TS5 or something. And yeah, that was kind of my first performance level paddle at the time. Like Paddle Techs were pretty good, and they still sold that same paddle for years. It wasn't until like the last 6 months that Paddle Tech started doing anything, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it was
what
a
were the
Paddle
early
Tech.
paddle techs called, like in 2021, 2022? Because that's what I had too, and I can't remember what it was even called.
It is the same ones as Bantam and Tempest. They've always used the same.
I think I had a
naming
Bantam.
scheme. Yeah, the Bantam was their power, and the Tempest was their control. But yeah, I had one of those, and then, I wanted to get something else, and I was just married, just had a kid, and I didn't want to spend $150 on a paddle, and I was doing research, and trying to figure out like this was early on, like there was no reviewers, like no one was doing anything like I'm doing now, and there's a bunch of us now, but yeah, no one was doing it, so I was like, I'm gonna just go give it a shot. I was just like, I'll make just like I did at the league. I was like, I bet if I make a website and I ask brands to review a paddle, they'll send me some for free. So that's how it started going. And like my first review was like the Pro Kennex, the blue one. I forget the name of it, but the flight Pro Flights, and then I borrowed some buddies' paddles. They had some Engages, did some reviews on those, and then yeah, dude, I've changed a lot of paddles since then.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I feel like a lot of our journeys were from breaking them. Did you ever you just get angry and break one, and then you're like, okay, I've had this one for a year anyway, so I'm gonna go find a new one. What's out right now that would be good?
Yeah.
What's your best paddle toss story? You ever see some people just throw some paddles and you're like, man, that's a real good paddle. Don't throw that.
Yeah.
I've tested that paddle before, man. You don't want to throw that one.
Yeah, I've seen some people, toss some stuff in the net. Nothing crazy. I don't know. You guys seen some?
No, we had a friend of
some fun
ours
ones?
take one to a trash can.
Yeah, it broke his paddle and then dented the trash can.
Yeah.
We were like, man.
Like a steel trash. It shouldn't have bent, but he
Yeah.
bent it somehow.
Shout out Pietro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. What paddle was it? Do you remember?
Oh, we just started playing This is when we just started. I don't even know what we were using at the time. I don't even know what was available.
Yeah, I don't know either, to be honest with
It
you.
wasn't a good
It started
paddle.
with an E. I remember it started with an E, but I can't remember. I think it had like the target on it. It started with an E.
I think he paid like 65
Encore
bucks
maybe?
for it or
Yeah,
something.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably Engage. They do that.
Engage is what it was, yeah.
This is also back to when we weren't sure if we liked what we were doing. So like going and buying another one, we're like, I don't know, do we still want to? We were like he said, we were playing singles tennis with pickleball paddles, and the people around us were like, what are these guys doing? And then finally, someone taught us the scoring system.
Yeah, I think the guy who broke his paddle took it back and had like a warranty on it and just got like a fresh
yeah,
one
he did,
too.
yeah. He
And
got
so
one
I think
for
he got
free.
the same one.
I think it was
Got a
at
warranty
Dick's,
after
actually.
smashing it against the
I think
can?
he got it from Dick's
Nice.
too.
Yeah, I wish I would have been there when he talked about it. They're like, well, what happened, sir? What happened to your paddle? He's like, oh, I just wear and tear.
Yeah,
It's like broken in half.
They're
yeah.
like, all right, we'll take another one. They're $50 or something. I don't know what he must have said to him. Yeah, so like I was telling you earlier, like I went from Paddle Tech to the Generation 2 Yola, and then that thing was breaking, and I knew they were coming out with the new set, the Gen 3, and so I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna wait. I'll buy that thing. I bought it. I like it. I got the Perseus, and then the Christian Alshon paddle just came out as well. There's paddles coming out all the time. What's your thoughts on the new line of paddle? What's your thoughts on? I mean, you've tested a ton of them. There's a sizable difference. Is it like an arms race? Is there a high water mark where these companies can't go past? Because I know the Gen 3s just got disbarred from.
Yeah, like just last night.
Yeah, and so I mean, did these companies know where they can stop? I guess the evolution of it, or are they just kind of pushing down doors?
Yeah, so they're that's kind of up in the air right now. So like the governing body has been USA Pickleball. Like
They're the ones that just dropped
rules of play.
Yeah, they're the ones that just dropped the boot on Yola, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for the longest time, paddles were like when you went to go get them tested, the rule they had in place to kind of curb big power was called deflection. So they basically had this little like rod that would push into the paddle and just kind of measure how flexible the paddle is.
Okay.
So if it was too flexible, then it wouldn't pass, because if the more flexible the material is, the more kind of trampoline-y it can get, more powerful.
Let me stop you there
So, like,
too, because I'm curious. And I feel like other people
Yeah.
are curious too. Like, is that what they're doing at the PPA and the MLP events when they're like, hey, this paddle didn't pass testing, or this paddle did? Is that what they're doing?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the test.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, at events, it's not required for amateurs, but the pros have to submit like their paddles every morning to get tested, and yeah, they have like an on-site deflection machine that they're measuring that.
Okay.
So yeah, when you get your paddle approved, that's the test they run. But these brands now, specifically like in the hot seat right now, are the Yola Gen 3s kind of found a way to work within the rules and still create something super powerful. So the Gen 3s have like foam around the perimeter, but the center of the paddle is still like a normal paddle, like it's firm, it has the polymer. And so when you do the deflection test, it just, it seems like a normal paddle, but because the paddle flexes so much around the perimeter, it kind of creates that trampoline effect and it's super hot. And so this deflection test isn't cutting it anymore. They have to find a new way to approve paddles and kind of, pigeonhole how much power is allowed. So they're switching from the deflection to what's called a core test, which is the coefficient restitution, aka like exit velocity. So this is like the same test that's used in golf and some other sports, I think, maybe baseball, but I know for sure golf. Essentially, they'll use radar guns and video to just measure how fast the ball comes off the face, rather than just looking at the materials being used, which makes so much more sense. And I'm hoping once they implement this new exit velocity test, that it'll not only will it help curb, the power level, but I hope they kind of relax like the deflection and other rules they have in place around materials, because I don't think it should matter what the materials are as long as it's staying within, the exit velocity speed. And so it could kind of open the door on some different materials and ways to construct paddles that maybe feel a little softer, but can still will stay within the bounds that's set with this exit velocity. So yeah, that's kind of this big mess right now of USAP trying to figure out how to box this in. But yeah, it makes like measuring the result rather than how the paddle is built makes so much more sense to me. So I'm excited about this. But yeah, then this is all like so recent and hot right now. Like this morning, the PPA and MLP, announced that there's like another entity that they're gonna.
Was
Well,
that the
so
USA AP or something like
it's
that?
called UPA. So UPA is like the holding company or the parent company for PPA and MLP.
Right.
So UPA is making like another group called UPAA.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's gonna they're gonna start. They're basically just kicking USAP to the side and saying we're gonna decide what is allowed. And so that throws a huge wrench in things. And there's a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
see how that
interesting.
shakes out.
What are some, because I have some questions about that too, because third-party regulation is important, I think, in professional sports. And I think when your organization owns that regulatory firm, that's probably not the most ethical situation. But also
Yeah,
the
I
paddles
agree.
aren't, but then again, though, the paddles aren't owned by PPA or MLP. So they're almost the ones under scrutiny, and the PPA and MLP are like,
But they're
well,
sponsors, they give a lot of money to PPA, and they announced that like these brands are going to be, a part of like the committee
right.
for this.
Yeah, all the
EP,
top athletes
and
were of those brands were the committee, and so were the brands.
Yeah.
Gearbox, Yola, they were a part of the committee. Everybody was part of the committee.
yeah, so it seems kind of weird.
Are you part of the committee?
I wish.
Yeah, you should be. This is us, Score Pickleball, Tony Slawitsky, Ari Wagner, talking about how you should be part of the committee. We'll put our vote in for that. 100%, because
Thank
you
you.
guys should
Thank
be. You are the exact type of person that should be on a committee like that. Somebody who's tested thousands of paddles. How many paddles have you tested so far?
Dude, I mean, I have like written reviews for over 100 paddles probably in different formats, but I've played more than that. I don't even know, dude. It's pretty wild.
So I want to kind of talk about that for a minute because I want to segue into something that is going to be important. So the paddles that you've reviewed, you said you reviewed over 100 of them. Tony and I both went through your website and did the quiz. Are only paddles that you reviewed the ones that are populating on your website, or is everything populating? What does that look like? So if somebody's going on that, just in case they want to know a little bit more about your process or what's actually showing up, is it, if you haven't reviewed the paddle, is it, hey, I haven't got to this yet, this isn't part of my thing, or is anything, what's showing up?
Yeah, so the website's broken out into a few different sections. So I have like my big review section where I have like a lot of in-depth stuff. Then I have like another section kind of has a list of my favorites for control paddles, my favorite all court, my favorite power paddles. And then I have the paddle quiz, which pulls from a list of 50 paddles that I've said, okay, I know these are really good.
Okay.
It's kind of, and it's like a wide range of prices and types of paddles, different shapes, just kind of captures the whole gambit. That I'm like, okay, I've reviewed these. I know these are solid. And then depending on your answers, I'm going to pull from this kind of pool of 50 paddles that I've kind of deemed like worth buying. And then we'll recommend those.
Yeah, that's important because as much as we're all pickleball geeks and I will listen to your paddle reviews all day long, I think, Bob, who's 75 years old and who's picking up pickleball for the first time, is probably not going to be able to find your reviews, but he will be able to find your website. He'll be able to find the quiz, and he'll be able to find what kind of paddle he wants, right?
Yeah, it could be really overwhelming when you're just like, getting into the space. And yeah,
Plus
so
now
like,
everybody's having a new paddle coming out every day.
yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
bonkers. And
I don't
so-
know what to do
Yeah,
about it.
the quiz is helpful that way. And then, yeah, like for that group that like doesn't want to worry about getting too much into the weeds, like I have like I call it a hot list. I kind of stole the idea from Golf Digest. They have like their hot list for golf clubs, and like I just have 6 paddles listed out in each of the different kind of categories that I've defined. And it's like, don't dig too deep. Go look at these. These are all solid. Find one that's in your price point, kind of fits the idea of what you're looking for, to make it quick and easy.
What are you using right now, Tony?
Carbon. I don't know which one, but I got it maybe like a year ago, and I feel like it might be time to upgrade. That's another thing too, is like, you get a paddle, and I feel like before the 12-month mark, you almost want to get another one or a new one because maybe an aspect of your game has gotten better, and now you need to change it up to something that might be more relevant with what you're struggling with at the current time,
Let's say you play 2 times a week.
Yeah, that's
How
definitely a
often do you
thing.
need a new paddle?
Yeah, so if you're playing 2 times a week, I mean, it kind of depends on what you care about. So like the first thing that's going to go on a paddle is like the grit.
Is that
So, like,
delamination?
grit-
What's delamination?
No, so delamination is different. We can speak to that in a second.
All
But
right.
yeah, like when you buy a new paddle, the first thing that's going to kind of degrade is the grit level. So like when you first buy a paddle, it has that fresh grit, spins really nice. So after about 3+ months, you start to see kind of, a noticeable drop in spin levels. And then like 6 months to a year is kind of when you start to see the paddle lose some of its pop, lose some of its uh, kind of, strength and structure there. And so, yeah, 6 months is kind of usually the magic number of when to get a new one if you're playing pretty consistent and you want, your paddle to, keep performing well. And then, yeah, after a year, and if you're playing 2 times a week, that thing's, yeah, you need to upgrade, bro.
I mean, is there not anything you can add to the face of the paddle that might assist with regenerating like that grip that was once there, that we don't have to buy a new one every year?
Yeah, that's starting to come. So skins is the idea that you're talking about. So there's one brand called Pickle, that has that like it's like a sticker. So once the spin wears down, you put the sticker on, and it kind of regenerates the spin.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're messing with that. There's a couple other brands that have that in the works. So that's actually going to be a big innovation this second half of the year, is solving for that problem. And it's going to be through these stickers or these skins that you put on the paddle, so that, because a lot of, yeah, like you just said, like spin goes first. And if you want your paddle to last longer, if you can revive the spin, then it's going to increase the lifespan of your paddle. And so, yeah, skins are coming, and I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, even to like, even just for like a branding standpoint, you buy a skin with the Score Pickleball logo or the Pickleball Effects logo or like your favorite sports team, you put it on the back of your paddle or something like that,
you can
right?
totally do that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I haven't heard. I have to look into those companies.
Yeah, there's the few brands that are trying it. They're all doing it a little differently. So Pickle, the one that has the one right now, they're part of their go-to-market strategy is creating customized designs for like clubs and stuff.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So they can just go slap the skins on existing paddles with the brand, the club's branding, which is pretty cool.
It's almost like
there's another company.
You're like stealing marketing space essentially from like a paddle you already bought.
A little bit. But yeah, so they're going about it that way. And then another company is going to launch here in about a month. They're creating a paddle that's essentially has no grit on it until you put the sticker on it. Whereas Pickle, like you put it on a paddle that already had grit before. So this company called Reload is doing it that way, and it's pretty cool. I've tested theirs.
You tested their paddle or their sticker or both?
Both.
Nice.
And then there's another company I just learned about called Revive that's like trying to license their paddle or their skins to brands, and so brands will just like a Selkirk or Yola will just create the skins through them, like for their stuff.
I am curious. So talk on it briefly because I don't think it's super important, but like what is delaminating? I hear that all the time.
Yeah, delamination is kind of like a umbrella term used for a couple of things that happen on paddles. So it happens to thermoform paddles. So if there's a paddle that's created using thermoforming, which is like we said earlier, when you make a paddle, it uses a lot of heat involved in the process to create the paddle. And during that process of using heat to create the paddle, it kind of weakens the core a little bit, softens it. Like it's just plastic. When you're putting plastic under that much heat, it gets a little weaker. And then when you give it to the player and they go, smack a plastic ball, like it starts to break down the plastic, the polymer core, and then the core literally like crushes, like it's not stiff anymore. And it's like when you squeeze into the paddle, you can like feel it give. So that's called core crush. And then, but when people say delamination, that's what they're referring to is that core crush.
So I've heard that be referred to as like almost like a baseball player corking their bat. It's like a pickleball player in the parking lot of like their rec courts, like taking a hammer to the middle of their paddle or something like that. It's the same sort of idea.
Yeah. In the early days, like when we didn't really know what the problem was, like supposedly there were a lot of pros like intentionally, core crushing or delaminating their paddles to get that bigger power. And then they put a stop to that real quick.
Yeah, I bet. Can I put you on the spot for a minute? Just not in a bad way, but so early on, Braydon was started this journey because he wanted to get some sponsorships and some free paddles, right?
Yeah.
Current Braydon posted a video in late April of 20 or so paddles in his studio that have been shipped to them. What does Braydon do with all those paddles once he's done doing it? Is he giving it back to the old Braydons of the world and giving paddles out, or do you have to ship those back to the companies? What are you doing with all those paddles?
Yeah, so I'll keep the ones that are like still relevant, so I can compare them to new paddles that come in, and for future reviews. And so I keep all the stuff that is still active, still being used, and still relevant. But yeah, stuff gets outdated, and then there's a local university here I donate a lot of paddles
Ah,
to,
sweet.
and there's some other like YNCA's and other places I've donated a ton of paddles to. But yeah, if I held on to them all,
It'd be crazy.
it'd be overwhelming.
That'd
I've
be a
given
good
a lot to
background for a
family
podcast, I
and
guess.
stuff.
The pickleball
Yeah, dude,
paddles.
I like if I open my closet and that thing's packed, I got probably about 30 paddles to the side here. I got paddles in bags in my garage. I got paddles under beds. It's pretty wild.
That's crazy. So one other thing too that I want to bring up, because I think I saw you talking about it a few different times, and I like stories like this a lot. I think it's great, and I think for somebody like yourself doing something like this, it's awesome. So I want to know more about, and I want our listeners to know more about your collaboration with Volair and why you're doing it, because I think it's important. And I would just I think that's awesome. So I kind of want to give you the stage on that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm really excited about this. So Volair is one of those kind of mid-market, mid-sized companies that I've done a few reviews for, and I've been playing one of their paddles for the last few months. It's called the Volair Mach 2 4s of 14 millimeters. So it's this paddle I've really liked. I've been recommending and just really been enjoying. And so I was interfacing with the owner. His name's Ryan, and he kind of pitched the idea. Is like, hey, Braydon, do you want to do like a collab on a paddle where we take this paddle you've been playing and like it, and we put your logo on it, kind of give you your own skin and look, and do it. And I was like, sounds really cool, but I was hesitant to take the offer just because like it's part of my brand is just
you're trying to stay agnostic,
being very unbiased and kind of owning everything I say. So I didn't want to look like I was like backing one brand more than another. But we came up with the idea to do the collab, but to just donate everything we make to a charity. And so we're donating it to a charity that my parents run. It's called the AJU Foundation. And so when these paddles come out in a couple months, when people, it looks really cool. Of course, I think it looks sweet because it's got my logo on it. But no, it turned out really cool. It's got like a golden edge guard and handle, and it's a pretty nice piece. And anyways, yeah, we're gonna sell. There's gonna be about 150. It'll be a limited run, and all the proceeds will go to the AJU Foundation. And so the foundation is a charity that my family started 5, 6, 7 years ago with my little brother. So my little brother passed away from cancer 6 years ago, and a couple years before he passed away, like it was like this really long 10-year battle. Just really rough. And like the last couple of years in particular, things were dragging on a bit, and he was losing motivation. And we started this foundation with him to help other people who are battling cancer. And so kind of the theme of it was like, there's been so many people that helped him, gave back to us, and were just super supportive of, whether it's through gifts or whether it's through, spending time with him, that we want to kind of create that and, just basically give back what was given to him. And so the idea of the foundation is people can submit, nominate friends, family of people who are battling cancer. They tell us a little bit about them, what they like, and then we take that information. We'll go create what we call a Smiles package. So we have like a $500-$700 budget for each package.
That's awesome.
And it's just like a glorified care package that we put together and tailor for these families, individuals that are battling cancer. And we go and present it to them and hang out with them and just talk and hang out. And it was incredible to do with him during those last couple of years, and it's been so incredible now, just a way to kind of honor and remember him moving forward. And it's been so good for us, and this is just a really cool way to use my audience, my platform, to find a way to kind of raise the awareness for the foundation and to raise some money for it. And really excited about it. It's pretty cool. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate it. I was hoping you were going to get into all that so that people, can hear about it and all the good work you guys are doing. That's awesome. The Volair paddle, I feel like the Volair paddle might have come up when I was doing my quiz. So the one that you're collaborating with them, what's the selling point on that one? Like what type of specs is on that one? What type of player would want to play with that paddle? Obviously people are, I hope people buy it to support, what you're doing as well. But
Yeah.
let's say you're looking for a paddle actually for performance. What type of player would buy that paddle?
Yeah, so this one is unique in that like it's a wide body shape, meaning it's a little shorter, a little wider. So when you have this shape, it makes it like super forgiving, especially from side to side. And so like these paddles don't feel like they have like a dead spot on them, and so it kind of helps reduce airs that way. But like wide body shapes have been kind of not as attractive in the past because you lose a little power when you get this shape. But with the onset of like thermoforming and more power and paddles these days, it's kind of brought new life to this shape where you can still have some offensive ability with it, but then it still retains that really nice, super forgiving, really light, really fast nature that comes along with these kind of shorter, wider shapes. And then so that was cool. Or that's one thing I like about it. And then they paired it with a longer 5.5-inch handle. For some reason, a lot of brands pair these wide body shapes with shorter 5-inch handles, and that's just it's just annoying. Like a lot of people are using two-handed shots now. A longer handle helps add a little more leverage, a little more power to the paddle, and so they paired a longer handle with it. It has a little more power than your typical kind of wide body shape, and it makes this really nice, super forgiving paddle that has room for two hands and like really easy to connect with. And I've been pushing it for the last 6 months or so, like really not necessarily pushing it, but like recommending it and kind of just sharing it more often. And people are starting to be like, wow, this is like so much easier to play with than an elongated shape, because longer paddles are so prominent in the pro scene that it's kind of filtered into the amateurs, where a lot of amateurs think that longer paddles are better. But for the most part, like these kind of shorter, wider paddles are going to benefit more people than elongated ones, just because they are more forgiving. They're a lot easier to play with. They're going to help reduce airs. And so there's a lot of attractive elements to it that way. And then I like the 14 millimeter just because it gives it a little more pop than the 16 does. But yeah, that's kind of the draw to them. They're really, really fast, really forgiving. And then they have that longer handle.
Shout out to the attractive short wide body paddles, eh? I like that. That's a great descriptor right there. Because when I took your test, it was it asked me, where I miss shots, and the couple questions were like off the top or off the side or everywhere, and I miss shots
everywhere. You miss them everywhere.
So now I'm like 99% sure that one of the ones that, because I remember Volair.
That's
and then
probably why I recommended it. Yeah,
Yeah.
So I'm definitely scooping up one of the Pickleball Effect Volairs. Are they already out or not yet?
I appreciate it.
100%.
No, they'll be out in a couple months. Just got the shipping confirmation for a few of them that I'm gonna get here in a couple days.
Yeah, I'm 100% getting one of
for it.
Sweet. I got, what else are you thinking about, Tony? What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about getting a new paddle now. Honestly, it's been too long.
I don't want to keep it much longer, man. We appreciate all your time. We appreciate all your insights. I know everybody listening appreciates it too, because we're all on the same journey together. Pickleball is a fun sport where everybody, the amount of people that I've talked to pros on their way to, on the way to drill at like 6:30 in the morning. I'm talking to presidents of big companies, just doing market research. Everybody's willing to talk to everybody. We're all at the grassroots of this sport, and it's great information for people, because when you're on the courts with a new player or anybody in general, really, everyone's, hey, what kind of paddle you got? Oh, let me see. What paddle is that? Oh, maybe I need a new paddle. There's always a conversation surrounding the paddle, right? And there should be.
Part of the sport.
Yeah, nobody. We got a whole bucket of balls right here. People care about what ball they play with, and you play with some people that will only play with this ball, never play with that ball. They'll play with, this or that. I don't really care what kind of ball I play with. I have some preferences, obviously, but paddle's got a little swag to it. It's got a little something to it. It's got that pickleball effect to it, right? So, where do you see your brand? Because your brand can grow. There's a lot of different branches I'm sure you can do, especially with what you're doing with Volair and what you're doing with other stuff like that. Where do you see you going from here? What's your outlet? What's next?
Yeah. So I just started going full time doing pickleball effect stuff like 4 months ago.
Congrats.
And thank you. Yeah, it's been exciting. I honestly just feel like I'm living a dream.
Yeah,
and
it's awesome.
Super grateful for where I'm at, and it's really cool. But yeah, I make money in three different ways. Like I make money, I'll do these reviews, and if people do end up purchasing the paddle because they think it fits them, if they use my links or use my discount codes, I get like a small kickback. And then I'll do like paddle consultations with companies, like if they're doing R&D and they'll send me a paddle sometimes. I'll just kind of share my thoughts and run some numbers on paddles. So I'll help people kind of build some of their stuff in their R&D process. And then I have some products on Amazon that I sell. So I have like some edge guard tape, some tungsten tape, and some over grips that I've developed. So I make money from those. But yeah, I think as far as growth wise, like my website does a lot of the work for me. It does really well, and I have a ton of ideas and places where I want to build my presence with my website. And then so that's kind of priority number one for me. And then number two is starting to get my products in more retailers and things like that. And then just keep growing my presence in like Instagram and YouTube. But yeah, I just, even since I've been going full time, like I just feel like I don't have enough time to do everything I want. Like I have a lot of ideas and things, ways I think I can grow my brand. And I really feel like I'm at the beginning and can really blow this thing up. And it just is amazing to me that I can support my family, pay my mortgage, put food on the table doing this, and just super grateful and just gonna keep doing it as long as I can.
Yeah, God bless, dude. You can hear Lucy in the background too. She's cheering you on as well. If you can hear her, man. We're all,
Thank
we're
you,
all happy
Lucy.
for you, man. We're all proud of you. That's awesome, man. It's great to see. Man, it's just awesome. Yeah, we appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for coming on with us. Thanks for chatting with our people, and yeah, man, we just look forward to it. We'll put some of your links in our show notes. Send me the links, and we'll make sure we put them in our show notes so people can where to find it, where to find the quiz, where to find your Amazon stuff. We want to support you as much as we can because you are doing a really good thing, and so that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. And yeah, big fan of what you guys are doing. Your guys' app is really slick. Like there's a big need for that, and we were chatting about it yesterday. And yeah, I'm not worried about you guys. This thing's gonna pick up steam.
Thank you.
Hey, we'll get on the rocket ship together, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thanks for talking,
Cool,
man.
man.
We appreciate you.
Yep. See you guys.
Thank you.
Cool.